Alright everyone, welcome. My name is Daniel Orion, and you're watching Arachnorion. When it comes to dangerous animals, I often hear of spiders being mentioned as some of the scariest venomous animals, alongside others like, snakes and scorpions. Well, my goal is to figure out exactly how dangerous spiders really are. But to do that, we first need to get a better idea of who the most dangerous spiders are. There is a lot of information on the internet about supposedly deadly or dangerous spiders. In my research, I've come across a lot of conflicting information and a lot of flat-out wrong information. Some of the reasons for this are that people tend to remember scary facts about spiders, but they often don't care enough about the animals to look up what the truth is. Not only that, but false information can be spread so widely that by the time it's debunked, there will be way more sources that say the wrong things than sources that say the facts. So how are we supposed to sort out the right information from the wrong? Well, that's where this video comes in. See, I've noticed many recurring patterns when researching the effects of spider venoms, and I think I've come up with a very simple to understand guide to recognizing dangerous spiders. I'm going to propose the following idea: that there are only 4 dangerous spiders in the world. These are what I'll refer to as the 4 killers, the 4 horsemen of death, if you will. These are spiders that have killed people before and are the most likely candidates to do so again. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Hold on, there are only 4 dangerous spiders in the world? I could have sworn there was more than just 4. Sure enough, if you look this up on the internet, you will see tons of top 10 lists of the most deadly spiders, the most venomous or most dangerous spiders in the world. So what's going on here? Don't worry, we'll get to that. My model here is going to explain away what's going on in lists like those, and we'll even get to practice examining one at the end of this video. But for now, here's what I'm proposing. If ever there is a spider that is being identified as dangerous, one of 3 different things is going on. The first, that the dangerous spider in question is one of the 4 killers that I'll be talking about in this video. 2, the dangerous spider in question is actually not dangerous, and there's some level of misinformation being spread. Or 3, the dangerous spider is not one of the 4 killers, but it also kind of is. This one's a little tricky. What I mean by it is that even though the spider that is dangerous might fall outside the 4 spiders that I'm talking about here, it is so closely related to them that it might as well qualify as one of the 4 killers. Alright, well, without further ado, let's get on with introducing these 4 killers. The first of our killers is called Latrodectus. The common name for these spiders is the widows. They are often called black widows, although there is some variation in colors between some of them, which is why you end up with names like brown widows sometimes. In different parts of Africa, these are often referred to as button spiders, and one of the most toxic of these spiders is found in Australia, where it is called the redback spider. So, what do Latrodectus spiders look like? The adult females are often light brown or shiny black. They are mostly found in webs. They are cobweb spiders, and their abdomen, the back part of the spider, is significantly larger than the cephalothorax. First and last leg pairs are the longest in these spiders, so that's one of the ways you can tell them apart from other cobweb spiders. Widows actually occur on every continent except Antarctica, which basically speaks to how successful of a group these spiders really are if they can spread so far and wide. They really prefer dark spaces where they like to make messy webs. For example, they really like break rock and wood piles, they like wall crevices, they really like garages, barns, stables, outhouses. Basically, they like places where there isn't a lot of human traffic, there isn't a lot of light, there's a lot of darkness, there are corners to make their messy webs. For example, they probably don't love your kitchen because people are moving things around and walking back and forth all over the place. The lights go on all the time, but garages make really good places for these spiders because it's mostly dark, very few people pass by, but they'll still get their bugs so that they can eat. So, as is going to be the case with all of these 4 spiders, there is a particular component, one toxin in the venom of these spiders that is particularly destructive to the human body. And in the Latrodectus widow spiders, this toxin is called the alpha latrotoxin. Now, to be clear, spiders have a lot of different toxins in their venom. It's basically a cocktail of a whole bunch of toxins. Most of them are going to target insects and other invertebrates, which is what these animals mostly eat. We have found a toxin in black widow venom that is very good at targeting crustaceans, and there is one, this alpha-latrotoxin, that is actually very good at targeting vertebrates, animals with spines, just like us. The venom of black widow spiders are neurotoxic, as is the case with almost every spider. That means they attack the nervous system. This is a very important system of the human body, or any body of any living animal, because it controls our range of movement and our feeling. It is estimated by some scientists that 20 to 40% of all of our total brain power at all given times is spent regulating the nervous system, because it's so important that this system be as exact as possible. Well, these alpha-latrotoxins mess with the nervous system in a couple of different ways, and the ones that are the easiest to understand is what they do when they bind to certain compounds inside the cell membrane of our neurons. These are cells that fire off neurotransmitters that equate to feelings. So the alpha-latrotoxins will do one of two things. They will bind to a substance inside the cell membrane of the neuron, and it basically tells the neuron to start firing neurotransmitters that it shouldn't be firing. This information telling your body that it's in pain when there shouldn't be pain. Or it actually creates small pores in the cell membrane where the neurotransmitters escape from, whether the cell wants it to or not. In both of these ways, the venom basically hijacks our nervous system and starts sending out these pain signals all over the place where we shouldn't actually be feeling pain. And those symptoms appear physically in the form of local pain, tremors and rigidity, paresthesia, vomiting, and erythema. And symptoms can even lead to death through things like myocarditis or other breathing problems. Interesting to note, the bites from these spiders are not very painful. That's because their chelicerae, or their fangs, are really tiny, and there have been cases where people have not even felt the bites until the symptoms showed up minutes to hours later. Adult females are the largest in this group of spiders and therefore are the most dangerous because they are larger and therefore can inject more venom. Alright, let's move on to the second killer, Atracity. This is the name of the family of Australian funnel web spiders. The famous Sydney funnel web spider is one of these spiders. These are large, dark black spiders, and what we mean by large here is from 45 to 60 millimeter leg span as adults. And they have long chelicerae. That's the word for spider fangs, right? The cephalothorax and legs are glossy black, while the abdomen, the back part, is often velvety black to plum, and that's illustrated really nicely in this picture here. What isn't illustrated very nicely is that they have prominent spinnerets on the back of the abdomen, so they're two little finger-like appendages, very similar to what you see in tarantulas, because both the Australian funnel web spiders and tarantulas are mygalomorphs, an ancient suborder of spiders. They, of course, make funnel-shaped webs, which is how they get their name. Now, the most toxic genera of these spiders have been shown to be Atrax and Hadroniki. They are all from mainland Australia, and they basically all build silk-lined funnel-shaped webs. They can do so in trees, on the ground, in burrows, rotting logs between tree roots, etc., and it usually depends on the species. Different species of funnel web spiders will prefer different places to lay their funnel webs. The males, however, when they reach sexual maturity, will often leave the safety of their funnel webs and go search for females so that they can mate. And oftentimes what happens is these males, they will run into they will get lost and run into basically human structures, houses, any place where they could find a person. And these spiders, they don't have very good vision, and so they're very defensive, and this is how accidents and bites can happen. Similar to what we talked to with Latrodectus, the atracids also have a harmful venom component, and for these guys, it's going to be called the delta atracotoxin. This family used to be called Hexathalidae, so in literature, this can also show up as delta hexatoxins. Just know that delta hexatoxins and delta atracotoxins are the same thing. This is a neurotoxic venom, just like with widows. And just like with widows, it affects the neurons, the cell membranes. So it has been found, because this venom is very heavily researched, that it actually has really interesting effects with the voltage-gated sodium channels in the cell membranes of the neurons. Basically, the nervous system is very, very highly regulated. And one of the ways that it regulates exactly that it's not sending out too much or too little information is that it lets in ions of potassium or sodium back and forth through the cell membrane, and it does so through these channels. Well, what the delta atrachotoxins do is they actually affect these channels in ways where they can't do what they're supposed to do fast enough, and so it throws the entire nervous system out of whack. And we talked about how important the nervous system is. It's very highly regulated. You can't throw that off, or there will be dire consequences. Those consequences show up in human beings in the form of nausea, vomiting, muscular twitching, saliva secretion, difficulty breathing, disorientation, and even unconsciousness. Bites from this spider are immediately painful, unlike bites from Latrodectus. And you can probably tell looking at this picture, even if this spider had no venom at all, yeah, that bite would be immediately painful. Those chelicerae, those fangs, are enormous, and these spiders have actually been known to bite straight through shoes. What's interesting to note is that vertebrate sodium channel targeting is currently thought to have evolved as a defense when males search for females. And part of the basis behind that theory is that, at least in the Sydney funnel web spider, and a couple of other funnel webs as well, the male's venom is a lot stronger and deadlier to humans than the venom of the female. And we think that's because these males have to leave the safety of their burrow, and they'll encounter potential predators that are often vertebrates, like birds, reptiles, you name it. And so they developed a venom that causes a lot more pain to vertebrates than the venom of a different spider. Now, it seems that it kind of went overboard when it comes to primates, and through some evolutionary coincidence, the venom became really good at targeting those ion channels inside the vertebrate nervous system. Or sorry, not the vertebrates, just the primates. In fact, dogs, when they're bitten by these spiders, they don't suffer very bad effects other than the pain at all. But when people get bitten by this, sometimes it's a medical emergency. Quick disclaimer before we move on to the third killer is that this is a type of funnel web building spider in the family Agolinidae. This is not a mygalomorph. It is not black. It is not Australian. These guys are found here in North America. They're in Central America, South America, Europe. They're all over the place. These guys are little funnel weavers, but they are not the atracids. These guys are harmless. What is not harmless is the third killer, Phoneutria. This is the genus of spiders called armed spiders. These guys actually have a bunch of names. Some other common names include wandering spiders or banana spiders. Now, I don't love that last name because hearing something be called a banana spider doesn't tell you a lot about what the animal looks like, especially in this case. It's not because they look like bananas. It's about them hiding in banana trees. And there are actually a lot of other spiders called banana spiders, so it creates too much confusion. For the sake of this video, I'm going to call these spiders what they call them in different parts of Brazil, where these spiders are very commonly found. And there they call them arañas armaderas, or armed spiders. What's the deal with Phoneutria? Well, they're actually some of the largest araneomorph spiders. We talked about how the funnel webs are mygalomorphs, like tarantulas. Araneomorphs are basically all of the other spiders, the more recent ones, like wolf spiders, jumping spiders, cobweb spiders, etc., etc. These guys are humongous. Their leg span as adults can reach anywhere from 13 to 18 centimeters. They have their four biggest eyes, the four biggest out of the 8, arranged in a cool little box pattern. That's the case with everything from this family. They often have red hairs on their chelicerae. That means fangs, if you remember. And that's because they use that in a defensive posture, which is rather famous, when they lift their front two legs really high in the sky and they show you their chelicerae with the red mouth, and it looks really scary. Armed spiders are typically found in tropical areas from Central and South America. Armed spiders, they don't build webs. They hunt on the move, kind of like wolf spiders or huntsman spiders. And they forage at night. They're nocturnal. So usually they're looking for a place to hide and sleep when the sun is coming out. Now, if they're close to a human residence when the sun is coming up, and it doesn't realize this because it's a spider, it might think someone's clothing closet is a perfect place to take a nap and wait for the next nightfall. And you can tell this is probably a really good place for an accident to happen and someone to suffer a bite from these spiders. Unlike the other 3 spiders in this list, the harmful venom component of these wandering spiders, of Phoneutria, It doesn't have a very fancy name. It does have a fancy denotation, and that is basically written a PH or a PN. Either one of those stands for Phoneutria, and it's followed by a TX, which stands for toxin, and then a number, and there are a lot of them. And we have isolated them and checked out their effects, and as usual, most of them target insects. That is the spider's main prey. However, some target vertebrates, and these have complex effects on our sodium channel kinetics, very similar to what the funnel webs affect, just in slightly different ways. And the way that shows up physically is with symptoms like priapism, hypertension, blurred vision, sweating, and vomiting. Bites from these spiders, like the atracids, are often immediately painful, but the bites could also be dry. That means no venom is injected. And one thing that's interesting about the evolutionary hypothesis of the venom of these spiders is that it also evolved on purpose to be damaging to vertebrates. But unlike the Australian funnel web spiders that are trying to not get killed by vertebrate predators, the armed spiders here from Phoneutria, they are actually trying to purposely hunt vertebrate prey. And this is because they're such large spiders. There have been studies done to show what kind of prey that these spiders will go after and not go after, and they readily go after vertebrates like geckos. So it makes sense that their venom did evolve to be able to be more effective at bringing those down. All right, here is our final killer, the fourth horseman, Loxosceles. These are the violin spiders, often called fiddleback spiders or recluse spiders. And just like with the banana spider name, I really don't like the name recluse. Here in the United States, where I'm from, the most famous Loxosceles spider is often referred to as the brown recluse. And I think that name does this spider a huge disservice, because not only is it doesn't make it very hard with the name alone to identify these spiders, and they are the most misidentified spider in the nation. But all spiders are going to be some combination of brown or reclusive. I mean, this name doesn't really tell you much, which is why I prefer the names fiddleback or violin spider, named, of course, after the dark marking on their cephalothorax that resembles a fiddle or violin. So, violin spiders are medium-sized spiders. For Loxosceles reclusa, we're looking at a 25mm leg span. They're colored dull fawn to dark brown, so these are not colorful spiders, and of course they have an even darker violin-shaped pattern on the cephalothorax. They actually have 6 eyes instead of the normal 8, and they're arranged in 3 pairs, which means that if you get a close-ish look at the spider, you might think it has 3 eyes, 3 little dots, but each of those dots is actually a pair of eyes, and the pair of eyes that's in the middle sits farther forward on the face than the 2 on the side. Violin spiders are found in most parts of the world. They're actually especially prominent in North and South America, the Mediterranean area in Europe, Africa, and West Asia. These spiders seek dark places and things to hide under or hide behind. They don't really build webs, they walk around, but they're not very large and powerful like the Phoneutria spiders, the armed spiders. So they like to basically crawl around corners, looking for small bugs somewhere, and they really like to find their hiding spaces, so they don't love open spaces. They really like tree bark when they're outside. When they're inside, they love things like cardboard boxes, drawers to hide behind. If there's anything thrown around on the ground like clothing, they love to hide under that. So accidents happen a lot of times when we're moving those cardboard boxes, or we're putting on those clothes that we had left on the floor overnight, or things like that. And that is how accidental bites tend to happen. The harmful venom component in Loxosceles venom is called phospholipase D. This will show up in literature many times under the name sphingomyelinase D. They mean the same thing. The reason for the distinction is that when we first discovered this venom component that seemed pretty unique to Loxosceles at the time, we found that it cleaved sphingomyelin inside membranes of cells. But we have since discovered that this stuff hydrolyzes all sorts of different phospholipids inside cell membranes, so it's not just sphingomyelin. Therefore, phospholipase D is the name a lot of people prefer to use nowadays, and it's the one I'll be using. But what exactly does it do? Well, unlike the other 3 spiders, the venom of the Loxosceles spiders is cytotoxic in nature. Now, it has some neurotoxic qualities, but the cytotoxic ones are the ones that people want to worry about. So they're not attacking the nervous system per se, they are attacking cells themselves. Well, so what happens is similar to how Latrodectus venoms, the alpha-latrotoxins, bind to certain properties of our cell membranes in our neurons and create little pores. Well, phospholipase D does something similar, but it's a little bit more destructive, nowhere near as subtle. Instead of reacting and creating a small little pore, it just straight up breaks the stuff down inside the cell membrane into simpler compounds. And once it starts breaking all of this down into simpler parts and hydrolyzing, basically, all of these important structures that are found inside the cell membrane eventually just kind of fizzles out. And without a cell membrane, the cell will eventually die. This shows up in one of the scariest symptoms from the venom of these spiders, which is necrosis, basically skin death, when someone's skin starts to rot away. Usually, this does not occur in a very exaggerated manner where it goes up your entire arm and your entire arm turns black. It's usually pretty well localized. Now, the symptoms outside of necrosis can include joint pain, chills, fever, nausea, vomiting, maculopapular rash. And in terms of necrosis, necrotic bites will present in the form of blistering and erythema within 2 to 8 hours after the bite. It's how you know you might be expecting some necrosis there. But scientists in the area where a lot of these bites occur, here in the United States at least, state that with proper care, necrotic wounds will heal in 1 to 2 months. And you might have a 10 to 15% chance of scarring, maybe. Similar to the Latrodectus spiders, the widows, the bites from these spiders are not very painful. They can be pinpricks, so just like with the widows, sometimes there have been cases of people bitten by these spiders without even realizing it. Now, with a lot of dangerous spiders, scientists have a name for what happens when the venom's effects actually hit way harder than average, and they call those systemic effects. Systemic loxoscelism is actually pretty well studied and very feared. Oftentimes, necrosis, when it occurs, at least in the United States, is often blamed on these spiders, and many times they'll have nothing to do with it. A lot of times it is caused by Staphylococcus aureus or some other bacterial infection. But these spiders can definitely cause necrosis, and systemic loxoscelism can make a person very, very sick. Symptoms can lead to widespread hemolysis, coagulopathy, or acute kidney failure. Really serious stuff when this venom starts getting into these organs and tearing them up. And people have died through systemic loxoscelism. It just isn't very common. Alright, so those are our 4 killers. But if we remember, there were 3 different scenarios that could be happening if someone describes a spider as dangerous. The spider belonging to the list of 4 killers that we just talked about was only one of the possibilities. Let's talk about the other 2. The second option for what might be occurring when we find a spider someone calls dangerous is that the spider isn't actually dangerous at all. And this is actually a frequent occurrence when it comes to spiders. Take a look at the 4 spiders here. The yellow sac spider, the whitetail spider, the wolf spider, the hobo spider. All of these 4 spiders share 2 things in common. The first is that they have all been accused of having medically significant venom that has hurt people in the past. And number 2 is that all of these claims have mostly been debunked by scientific testing since then. Now, the reason why people so frequently target spiders when it comes to pointing their fears at something is actually really fascinating, and exploring the reasons as to why these spiders have been considered dangerous in the past would make for a really interesting topic, but it deserves its own video, and I don't want this video to drag on too long, which is why I'm leaving these 4 sources here if you want more information about exactly why these spiders aren't considered dangerous. Instead, why don't we move on to exploring the third option of what happens if we find a seemingly dangerous spider. And that is that the spider is a bit dangerous, and it's not one of the 4 killers, but it is more closely related to the 4 killers than what it seems at first. So let's check out these 3 spiders here, the 6-eyed sand spider, the noble false widow, and the Australian mouse spider. These spiders actually have a decent case for being called medically significant themselves. And for all 3 of these spiders, there are actually scientists that do accept that they'd have medically significant venom. However, none of these spiders have any confirmed kills on a human being as a result of their bite. And in all of these cases, something very mysterious is going on that is revealed when we look at the components of their venoms. I'll show you what I mean. Let's look first at the scientific paper about Steatota nobilis, the noble false widow. Back in 2002, someone wrote about their venom and how it's potentially dangerous. But there are clues hidden in the context here that struck me as odd. For example, in the title, it shows that the bites from Steatota nobilis can induce latrodectus-like symptoms. Further down in the abstract, it explains how bites were previously classed as medically significant, with similarities to bites from true black widows of the genus Latrodectus. Isn't that interesting? Now, it actually makes a lot of sense when we consider that Latrodectus and Steatota are two genera within the family Theridiidae. They're basically sister groups. So this means that they diverged from each other a lot more recently along the evolutionary line than from any other spider, which sort of goes to explain why their venom is actually so similar. But in the case of the smaller Steatota spiders, it is just like a weakened baby version of widow envenomation. Let's talk about Missulena real quick. These are the Australian mouse spiders. Now, right off the bat, I can tell you guys that these are black Australian mygalomorphs. Does that ring any bells? Well, here's something else that might seem familiar. Right in the title of the scientific paper, it describes the activity of the venom involving modulation of sodium channel gating. Where have we heard that before? If we scroll down farther down this paper, we reach a line that says that the actions of this venom are very similar to that of the delta atrachotoxins from Australian funnel web spiders. So it seems that we might have another case of two groups of spiders being similar enough to each other that their venoms actually do very similar things and have very similar effects on the human body. Let's look at this third example now, and this one's really interesting. In my humble opinion, these guys hold the case for being the fifth member of the four killers should a fifth spot ever open up. I mean, don't get me wrong, the data on these guys is negligible. There is actually not a single confirmed bite from these guys in the history of the world. However, there are a few suspected cases, and some of the symptoms that have been reported do seem pretty dire. But even if we accept all of those, yep, they were all six-eyed sand spider bites, and they're super dangerous, let's look at exactly why they are dangerous. In this paper about Sicarius ornatus, one of the sand spiders, back in 2013, it explains right in the title that the venom contains active sphingomyelinase D. We've heard that before. Indeed, Sicariidae is a family of spiders that actually includes the genera Sicarius and Loxosceles, one of the four killers. It even describes right here in the background the case of a man who was supposedly bitten by a Sicarius species that ended up developing a necrotic lesion similar to that caused by Loxosceles. So what am I trying to say here? Well, in all of these cases, it seems that we have spiders that, yes, they may be dangerous, and they have sent people to the hospital before, but they're not exactly reinventing the wheel when it comes to how they're attacking the human body. In basically all of these cases, the venom is acting in very similar ways, if not identical ways, to what one of the four killers was already doing. These spiders are what I like to think of as guilty by association. Yeah, they might be dangerous, but the data is less supportive of the fact that they are dangerous, and not only that, but they are dangerous in basically the same way that one of the four killers was already being dangerous in. Just another fascinating thing to think about. So let's wrap things up here with a question. How should you be using the knowledge from this video? Well, I think that with this model, we have a really good way of detecting how scared we should be of spiders that are encountered and called dangerous. We know that there are 4 spiders that are definitely dangerous. We know that there are a couple that are dangerous by association, and we know that some aren't actually dangerous at all. So, I thought, why not make a quick Google search and see exactly how many truly dangerous spiders actually appear in this internet search. So I went ahead and typed into Google, most dangerous spiders, and I came out with this great list that Google had pulled from different sources on the internet, and we get to analyze how correct it is. Ready? Let's start with the top left, the brown recluse. That is one of the common names for Loxosceles spiders that live here in North America. That's going to get a 1. That is indeed one of the 4 killers and therefore a medically significant spider. Armed spiders is the next one down. Armed spiders is a common name for Phoneutria. That is one of the 4 killers. That's going to get a 1. Redback spiders are Latrodectus. They're found in Australia. That's going to get another 1. Uh-oh, the Hobo spider. It looks like we ran into our first case of misinformation. There has been no data supporting the fact that Hobo spiders are dangerous in any way. So that's going to get a big old 2. Missulena is the genus of Australian mouse spiders. Some of these have caused harm in the past and even required antivenom, so we're going to give this one a 3. It's not one of the 4 killers, but it is pretty similar to Atracity. Next one, Sicarius spiders. Yeah, also guilty by association. They're the ones that have phospholipase D in their venom, just like Loxosceles. That picture is not a Sicarius spider. But I'm going to go ahead and give it a pass, because I'm sure they were talking about the correct spider. Black widow spider, that is Latrodectus, one of the 4 killers, absolutely, it gets a 1. The brown widow spider, also Latrodectus, gets another 1. The wolf spider, no. This is not one of the 4 killers. It's not related to one of the 4 killers. It has never been proven that the venom of wolf spiders causes any significant harm to human beings. This is going to get another 2. Huntsman spiders, where did these come from? I've never even heard of anyone calling huntsman spiders medically significant. That's going to get a big old 2. Tarantulas, no sir, no tarantula has ever killed a person. That's going to get another 2. Managing spiders, I don't even know what to say about this one. It's going to get a question mark. The Sydney funnel web spider, however, that is a member of Atracity, one of the 4 killers. That's getting a 1. Yellow sac spider, not one of the 4 killers. Sorry, this was widespread misinformation. We have tested the bites of these spiders and have not proven any signs of necrosis. That's going to get a 2. Banana spiders, common name for Phoneutria spiders, so that's going to get a 1. That's one of the 4 killers. And here they're making it a little easy on us. Loxosceles, absolutely. Violin spiders are one of the 4 killers, as are the widow spiders from the Latrodectus genus. So how did Google do? Pretty average. This is honestly the ratio that I expect to find on lists on the internet, but the difference is, after watching this video, you will be able to analyze it just like this. See a spider whose common name you don't recognize? Go ahead and enter it into Google, a Google search, look at the Wikipedia page, and see what genus or family it belongs to. If it's not from one of the 4 killers, something suspicious is going on. But maybe it's a name for one of the 4 killers that we hadn't known before. Anyway, I'm really hoping that this video clears up some of the misconceptions about exactly what spiders are dangerous and which ones aren't. It really is more simple than it appears at first. So, we learned a lot about which spiders are actually dangerous, how they hurt us, both on a cellular level and how it appears in the form of physical symptoms. We learned about some spiders that just aren't as dangerous as some people claim, and we learned about some spiders that, might be dangerous, but they're also very closely related to the 4 killers. One thing you might still be wondering is, okay, we know who the dangerous spiders are, but how dangerous are they compared to other animals? Now for that, you'll have to keep an eye out for the next video coming out on this channel about how spiders stack up against some of the deadliest animals in the world. Until then, thank you so much for watching. This has been Arachnid Ryan, and I will catch you guys on the next episode. Take care.